Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Average Superstar TV. I'm your host, Lauren Lepre. Insert that sound effect. Boom. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. And this week, it's Roundtable week here at Average Superstar TV. And there's a lot of topics going on, but one of them we're going to discuss tonight will be underrated horror films or horror-related. With me, I got Dave, who didn't put up his last name, so I don't want to say it wrong. Say your last name.
Pierdomenico.
Yeah. He has his own podcast. He's been on this show plenty of times with The Countdown. So welcome to the show again.
Thank you.
And join us for the first time is this little hellraiser here. Actress that she's done podcasting. She's kind of came out the last couple years swinging in the acting world. Big horror movie fan. Lydia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. What's the name of your podcast? Both of these have podcasts. I know that now, right?
Yeah. Just the Deeds.
Just the Deeds. And Dave, yours is?
I'm Halloween Year Round on YouTube and just HalloweenYearRound.com.
Sweet. All right. Well, we also know there's so many movies out there for horror movie fans that sometimes get overlooked, sometimes just get, fall at the Bayside. And it's funny because between the three of us, and if the fourth person joins us, none of our movies are the same. There is no overlap. So we all
I was worried about that.
Yeah, I would have spoke up because you try not to. But we have done that before on countdowns. But amazingly, all of us came up with 5 good ones, and I like yours a lot. I was like, I didn't even think of those 5 at all, but I was like, oh, this is really
I thought they would be too mainstream, and I was like worried. I'm like, oh, they're gonna think I'm like some amateur horror fan.
Yeah, and it comes up with I think that's going to work out great. So with that, we're going to start off with our number 5s. So I will start off.
I didn't put mine in any particular order.
I know. Didn't really. None of us really did.
Like a legit ranking. Like I did not do that.
I always do mine in like either alphabetical or order of release.
Yeah, I kind of looked at my 5. Like I think we really look at it together. We're just trying to bring these movies more attention. So there really is no order, but still called the top 5. So I'm gonna count it down like a top 5. But coming in at Lydia's top 5 is my second favorite horror movie character of all time. I love this franchise. I totally agree with her on this selection of Psycho for the beginning. Going around the room, starting with you, Lydia. It's your pick, so speak first.
So I really, I've always liked this movie, especially over Psycho 2 and 3. And I think the reason that I feel like it's kind of overlooked is because it was the first of the Psycho franchise that was released as like a made-for-TV movie. As far as like the first 3 were released to theaters, they had like a big draw to them. And this was just like, oh, it's just going to be on like, I think it was Paramount. I can't remember, but
it was actually, I could jump in here. Showtime? It was made for Showtime.
Showtime. Yep. So I think that had a lot to do with it. And I was thinking today too, I'm like, oh, like I wonder if when they did all of the flashback scenes to when he was a teenager, if they had did those in black and white, how that would have affected the movie. And I'm like, I feel like that would have made that movie a lot better.
I never thought of that.
To the original.
Yeah, I totally get you on that. I'm a giant Psycho fan. I like all 4 of these films like so much. I think they flow really good, especially the second one. But by the time this one came out, the gas was gone, at least as far as it going to the theater. So I guess Showtime got the rights to it and funded the movie. And me growing up, we didn't even have cable, so I wasn't getting near Showtime. So when so I couldn't get to the video store to see this. So when this movie was happening, like I'm like calling people, can I come over and watch Psycho 4 with you? And it was like, no. They wouldn't let me. So I had to wait probably back in the day for Video Store for this to come out for 6 months. I told no one, don't say a word about it. So when I finally saw this, I was so happy. I remember like I rented it for like 3 days so I could watch it like a couple times a day. And I was so happy with Henry Thomas's performance as a young Norman Bates. I thought he knocked it out.
Really good.
Yeah, and it was just really cool because we all know what Norman Bates is, and it was a guy, was basically only knew his mother. Mother was mad, so he had a love-hate for her and everything, but you never really saw what he went through, and you finally see it, and you're just like, you just want to kind of go and hug, like, oh God, it's okay, kid, we can fix you, but
it makes sense.
Yeah, but Dave, did you happen to see this film?
So I will admit, I love Psycho. It's it's one of the goats. I have never seen any of the sequels, but I have heard people voice, unpopular opinions that, like Psycho 2 is actually really good. And
it is.
Now Psycho 4. I'm curious though, given that it's kind of his backstory as a teenager, how does it compare to something like, the TV show Bates Motel that's kind of telling is it telling a similar story around a similar time frame? Does it tie into it?
Okay, so I don't know, Lydia could jump in a second.
I think I've only seen season 1 of Bates Motel.
Okay.
And I feel like it's more present day.
Okay, right? So what you just said is the reason I didn't watch it, because what I loved about Psycho was it was about a guy who has no communication with the world. He's just in the family business of running a hotel with his mom, and his mom doesn't want anyone around him, guys, girls, nothing. So, and it's in that past. It's based in the 60s. So I was so pumped when they actually announced the show, and then I saw a trailer and I saw Norman Bates with a cell phone, and I just lost my heart on. It was over, because I'm like, the guy would never, probably, chances are, would not be in that. He'd be like a lot of kids these days, where there's still a way to reach the real world, where I don't think the mom thing would bother him as much to draw him to do that. I think he'd just be like, by the time I'm 18, I'm the hell out of here. Or even 16, like, I'll go live with my friends in Nebraska or something, So that sunk me, Dave. So, yeah, to answer your question, I never saw it. I guess that's that one.
I guess so.
Yeah. All right, Dave, we are going to move on to your number 5, which is Fade to Black. The floor is yours.
So this is a movie that thankfully kind of got wider attention when it got released on Shudder. I think it was last year. Shudder added it, and they did like an HD restoration of it. Prior to that, I had to get like a bootleg DVD of it because it had never been released on DVD. And it was just this weird, cool movie from 1980 about this crazy obsessed fan that kind of seems like a normal thing today, but back then, it was kind of a new idea. And, he loves horror movies so much that he decides to start killing the people, the bullies in his life by dressing up and reenacting like the horror movies. He dresses up as Dracula and attacks somebody. And, a lot of what we see today in terms of like meta, horror movies, I think you can trace back not just to Scream in 96. I think you can trace it even further back to Fade to Black in 1980.
I dig that. And this is with Dennis Christopher, right?
Yes. And a very young Mickey Rourke.
Oh, gosh. I forgot he was.
Mickey Rourke is one of the bullies. Yeah. He's one of the guys that messes with him.
And he is perfect, because at that time, Mickey was actually he was a foot soldier for the mafia. He'd be the guy that roughed you up for money that you owed. Yeah, so that's pretty crazy. And he was Mickey's still big now, but in 1980, oof. Yeah, you don't want Mickey bothering you, trust me. I like that. And Dennis Christopher is also, we all know, played Eddie in It in 1990.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, crazy. All right, cool. My number coming at number 5. I remember being in the video store and stopping dead when I saw this box cover. I was like, oh my gosh, it's a hot girl, and she's got a backpack with Freddy's glove on it and Jason Voorhees' mask and a whole bunch of other things. And I'm like, I need to rent this. Sleepaway Camp Part 2. And I got to go with, we all take a look at this cover here. That's not Pamela Springsteen. That was just a hired model for the cover. But when we say Sleepaway Camp, we all love Felissa Rose, but I truly love Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3 as a whole. I just think they're real. It's campy. It's awesome. I love the Camp Rolling Hills shirts. I love how crazy, like over the top they went with Pamela Springsteen. And for anybody who didn't know, Pamela Springsteen is that. She is the sister of Bruce Springsteen. Yeah, that's crazy. And I don't even think she ever's done a convention or nothing. I think she kind of shut the door at all acting. I'm wondering if Bruce paid her, like, here's some money, go away. Don't stop embarrassing the family, maybe. But Dave, did you actually see this?
No, I love Sleepaway Camp too. It was, you're right. Like Sleepaway Camp is sort of like the quintessential camp slasher up there with like Friday the 13th. And to think that you could follow that up with something, your first thought would be, oh, it's going to be a cheesy, dumb sequel. And it kind of knows that it is and just runs with it. Like Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3 has no illusions about what it is.
And I gotta say, Allie's death in the portal potty has got to be one of the most grossest things ever. It's still one of the most grossest kills I've ever seen in a horror movie. Like, think of all the days you could die. Yeah, she wasn't really being beaten, but like to be in an outhouse being drowned in poop, like just in pee and everything. Oh, it's freaking gross. Lydia, your thoughts?
I've not seen Sleepaway Camp 2, and I didn't even see Sleepaway Camp for the first time until back in September. And I was like, I have to watch this because I'm going to go film a movie with Felissa Rose. So I was like, I have to watch Sleepaway Camp. So I didn't even see the first one until September. So I'm a real slack.
Did you know the ending of the first one before you saw it?
Yeah, I knew. I had met Felissa at a couple of conventions, so I had seen the photos. So I knew it was coming, but I was like, I kept telling myself I gotta watch it. So I was like, I'm gonna go film with her. So I was like, I'll just watch it. So I'll have to get on the 2 and 3 train.
What film did you film with her? Was it?
We did Macabre Mountain together.
Is that available?
It should be out in September. It also has Robert Mukes in it and Dave Sheridan. So
sweet.
And me.
Yes, giving everyone a free plug. Yes, definitely check it out. Keep an eye out for that. And for the record, I know it's a way different world now, but when that first Sleepaway Camp came out, when I saw that ending, I'm like 9, so I'm kind of like completely confused. I was just completely confused. I was just like, wait, what?
At age 9, you were the target audience.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I think it would be interesting if they went and they did like kind of her backstory, like her backstory, like between the boat accident and then going away to camp. I think that would be kind of an interesting movie.
It would be a cool prequel. Yeah, it wouldn't be a bad idea at all.
How hilarious would it be if like Felissa came back and played the aunt?
I would watch that movie.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Could you imagine if you could get Pamela Springsteen and like the new Angela Young kills both of them or something? That'd be pretty cool. Like taking the crown. All right, so we're moving on to the 4s. So with Lydia's first pick for that will be 3 Extremes, and the floor is yours.
Oh my God! So I've watched this movie probably a dozen times, and it's a Korean horror anthology. So it's 3 separate stories. They have nothing to do with each other, but the one story is called Dumplings, and it has Bei Ling in it. She actually went on to make that into a feature-length film. So I met her I saw her at New Jersey HorrorCon last year, and I brought up Dumplings, and she got super excited. So you could tell it was like one of those projects that she actually really cares about, and she wasn't expecting somebody to bring it up. But and then she makes dumplings, and I don't want to give anything away about it, but there's like something gross and disgusting about the dumplings. And then the second story is about, I believe it's a director or a producer, and his wife is being like held hostage. And then the third story is about a set of twins. So it's really interesting if you like the Asian horror scene. They're set in 3 different countries. If anybody was like into geography, but it's really interesting.
Dave, did you happen to see this? Because I did not.
I haven't, but I will definitely be checking it out because it sounds really interesting.
Yes,
I think it's on Amazon Prime.
As a former history teacher, I'm one of those weird people that loves horror and geography.
Yeah, that's
well, like I was like looking everything up today just so I would like had it fresh, and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that they were like, I knew it was like a Korean horror film. I was like, but when it said that each story was set in like a different place, I was like, oh, that's interesting.
What were the other 2 countries?
I saved it so I could reference it.
Smart girl.
So one takes place in China, one takes place in Japan, and one takes place in South Korea.
All right.
And then there's a sequel. I did see the sequel. I didn't think that it really held up to the predecessor.
All right. They ought to do one in North Korea. That would be scary.
Yeah. The script might need to change. Someone might be standing over them. All right, cool. Well, moving on to Dave's number 4, which is How to Be a Serial Killer. The floor is yours, sir.
So this is a movie that most people have never heard of. I only know about it because I used to work at a Suncoast Video. And when I worked there, this came out. It was like straight to DVD. And I opened up a box of DVDs to put on the shelf. And this was in it. And I just looked at it and I said, I have to buy this movie and I have to watch it. It's ultra low budget. It's budget shows. But it is like it's like an infomercial / motivational speech about a guy who's a serial killer, and he's gonna change your life, and don't you want the life of your dreams? Well, here's how you do it, by being a serial killer. And he like walks you through the steps, like here's how you dispose of bodies, and here's how you do this.
Was he at all sort of this is before Patrick Bateman?
So this is after Patrick Bateman. This is like 2008.
I didn't know if like Patrick was influenced the character, but I guess no, he was there first. So
he probably, just based on the way the guy dresses, he probably would have been. But it co-stars Matthew Gray Gubler. I think that's how you say it. The dude from Criminal Minds.
Okay.
Reed from Criminal Minds. And he takes him on like as his apprentice. And it's like half infomercial, half the Office style mockumentary about this guy just being a serial killer. And you're wondering why like this camera crew was following him around.
Would this be something that you would be able to find on like Tubi? Is this where do you?
It was on Tubi a while ago. I only know that because I hosted a watch party on Twitter where we watched it, and I had to find where it was streaming. But it's like it's more so a very, very dark comedy.
Okay.
But it's just, I loved it, and it was just one of those weird random movies that it's like so you're familiar with Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon?
Familiar with it, sure.
It's like that, but instead of for a slasher, for like a realistic serial killer.
Sweet. Lydia, did you see this at all?
I have not, but I kind of want to now.
There we go.
You influenced me.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
It will change your life.
Moving on to my number 4 is part of a trilogy. It's a very big overlooked character, and they've been talking about restarting this or doing a continuance. I hold the torch for this. The first movie of the 3, I wasn't that big of a fan of, but I thought this second, they put a lot of money into this film, a lot of marketing, and it got its due back in the day. But then by the time the third one came out, kind of fell at the Bayside. So with that, number 4 for me will be Maniac Cop, particularly part 2, but I actually like them all, like I was saying. But Officer Matt Cordell, for anyone who loves Jason or Michael Myers, I don't know how you don't love Officer Matt Cordell, because he's basically a silent killer that's an ass-kicking machine. And, he's this really awesome cop that was framed and died, but is supernatural and is around New York City. And instead of now protecting man, he's the killer. He is the trouble. And there was a lot the cast between the part 2 and 3, and then the first one starring Bruce Campbell. For anyone who, everybody's a big fan of Bruce Campbell, and he's in the second one for a little bit. But there's a lot of faces in part 2 and 3 that got way bigger, but like they got started in these 2 films because it was like, your low budget horror movie. Like the girl that played Dana in The Stand, she's in part 3. The guy that played Dan, or was it Matt or Dan Fielding? I'm trying to remember from him. 90210. He's in part 3. The Fratelli brother is the star of part 2 and 3. Robert Zugar, I believe that's how you say his name, who plays Maniac Cop. Love this dude. Sad. I think they stopped it because he had some personal issues. I think that's another reason why they never went forward. I guess they didn't want to replace him. But Dave, did you happen to see this?
I love me some Maniac Cop. Now, I will say I like the first one better only because I love Tom Atkins.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the protagonist. But like halfway through the first one, he passes the torch because I think he dies, and then he passes the torch of being protagonist to Bruce Campbell, who then takes over and then is at the very beginning of the second one, and then he passes the protagonist torch to the next person. If you're gonna talk
a lot of puck passing in those movies,
but that's what I like is that any character, like, oh, you think this is the main character? They could die. It was like Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones. Anyone could die. And if we're going to talk about stars of the movie, you can't leave out, what's his name? Robert Zar's epic jawline.
Yep. Like
it's
ridiculous.
A star in and of itself.
Yes. Yep. That's great. I love that. Lydia, did you happen to see these?
I haven't.
I'm
going to say now, I'm probably going to be a total slacker on everybody else's picks. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I can tell you right now, Tubi is your savior with all the Maniac Cops. You could probably watch. I believe you could watch. They're all there. So, and for everybody else, if you're looking for a quick movie, I think they're all like 80 minutes too. It's like just like sleepaway camps. They're like 80 minutes and in and out. But
they're very easy to marathon, like 3 in a row.
Yes, and for anybody who's likes sequels, that it like just like Dave was saying, part 1 literally ends right to part 2. It's like the next day.
One long.
Yep, and the same thing with the second and the third. Like it's like flashbacks, and then let's keep going. So that would be my pick. We will move on to the 3s. So
I'm like, which one is he gonna pick?
So for Lydia's number 3, we have got. I'm a little stunned over this one, but let's go with it. Jennifer's
Why
Body.
are you stunned about this? This movie does not get the recognition it deserves.
Go for it.
It doesn't. And I think that is because of Megan Fox.
Exactly what it is.
But that's ridiculous. It's still, she does a great job in it, and it's a good movie. And everybody, because she had all the stuff with Transformers, whatever. But this is a solid horror flick. And it's kind of based on a true story. I mean, not the whole she becoming a demon part, but the actual. I was gonna say,
I don't remember reading about the succubus on the news.
Yeah, well, no. So for everybody's seen it, I take it. But spoiler alert for those who don't. It's about a band that they live in Devil's Kettle, I think is the name of the town, and there is like a waterfall, but scientists have gone out to the waterfall, and like anything they drop in it, they can't find again. So this band decides they're going to sacrifice a virgin to become famous. Megan Fox's character is the virgin, but she's really not a virgin, so she becomes a demon and starts killing all the boys in the town. And Amanda Seyfried is in it, and that's her best friend, and they have a little lesbian kiss, all that fun stuff.
Can't go wrong with that. For the record, Amanda Seyfried is an Allentown, Pennsylvania girl. That's where she grew up. So representing Pennsylvania right there.
So I think people don't give this movie enough credit, and it actually is good.
Dave, all you.
So I love this movie. I just watched this movie. I rewatched it the other day with my wife. Had never seen it. It's on HBO Max.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still have that song "Through the Trees" stuck in my head right now.
It is such a catchy
I just
song.
watched it the other day. No, what the problem with this movie, it was so mismarketed.
It really was.
It was marketed as like this, teen sex comedy horror, and it was so much smarter than it got credit for, and it was so much smarter than anyone expected it to be. First of all, Megan Fox she's not even the main character. Amanda Seyfried is.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That's how they market it, but I don't think they knew what to do with her downfall with Transformers. I think they just threw caution to the wind and said, "This might be our best way to market this film," and it didn't work.
But yeah, it sadly did not get the it deserves so much more credit. It's clever. It's funny.
Catchy.
Cannot recommend that catchy song. And the other thing, you watch it now. It is the epitome. It came out in 2009, and it is the epitome of all things 2000s. Because I was watching it with my wife, and we're like, "Oh my god, that's like everyone in our high school dressed like that." Or like even the song "Through the Trees" sounds like what you would have heard playing on the overhead speaker of a Hot Topic in 2005. So it had me nostalgic for the 2000s, the way that people are nostalgic for the 80s.
Fun. Cool. All right. So moving on to Dave's selection. As above, so below. All you, sir.
Now, people who know me know that I am not crazy about found footage. Just in general, it's not really my thing. That being said, As Above, So Below is the best found footage movie ever made. It actually uses its because the movie always struggles to figure out a justification for why the characters are carrying the camera. Where here, they're documenting what they're seeing. And I feel like just the fact that they actually shot on location in the catacombs of Paris gives it such gravity. And it's so creepy and claustrophobic. And like you feel it down there. Like the characters are literally traveling down into hell itself, and the movie makes you feel like you're down there with them. And it uses the found footage style to its advantage in that it feels like you're there.
Coolness. I can't say because I have not seen see this one, but I'm sorry that I saw this one. Lydia, did you happen to see this one too?
I didn't see it, but it's like on my watch list because I remember the poster. The theatrical poster was like really awesome because it's kind of like the pictograph. Is that what you would call it? Where it's kind of like the reverse of it. And I was like, oh, that looks really interesting. And again, I'm not like a big found footage person. I never have been, and I doubt I will be. But if you said it's the best one, then I will definitely have to move it up on the list.
And it's a friendly reminder that the entire city of Paris is sitting on millions of dead skeletons.
I want to go there so bad. No lie, I want to go there so bad.
So do I.
I think there's a McDonald's in Paris that has like a skeleton in the side, and it's there because it was like easier to leave it there than move it.
That's the guy that ate the McRib.
Yep.
That's what's left of him.
And here comes Dave with his history again.
Sorry, I know. I can't help it.
That's fine, though. That's pretty cool. All right, rolling in with my number 3. This film is out of print. It is not available anywhere. I do see it at Monster Mania in the bootleg rack. This is the only way to get it. The film company went under, and it seems this movie has never been sold. This is movie starring Corey Haim. This was his last, along with Dream a Little Dream, his last of his A-list movies before his trouble started. I saw this. I rented this movie. I love it. I still love it. With that, Watchers. And I really like this flick. It's starring Corey Haim, Michael Ironside. There's a young Jason Priestley in this with a little cool mullet. So around this time, this is like 1989. And you had movies with Jim Belushi like K-9, and you had Chuck Norris with Top Dog. This movie is with Corey Haim with this awesome dog called Furface. That was his name in the movie. But it's basically a dog and a Bigfoot. And what it is, they're military property. So meaning the dog, they create this monster sort of Bigfoot that's basically Chewbacca is going to beat the crap out of you. And it's experiments on them. And whatever the dog sees, so it's the Bigfoot. So the military thing was like, we'll send the dog out to kind of scout the land, and the Bigfoot will kind of be able to spy. It's kind of like a spying thing, knows where to go and wreck things. And basically what it comes down to is during the experiments, the Bigfoot ends up freaking hate, which is called the Oxcon, starts hating the dog. And the dog escapes, but Bigfoot knows right where the dog is, so he's hunting the dog the entire time. Enter Corey Haim, picks up a stray dog, and that's where our movie really starts. So wherever the dog goes, Bigfoot wrecks the place and kills people. And I dug this movie a lot. Frank Zappa's daughter's in this. This had a lot of money behind it at the time, and then Corey Haim had his downfall where he got caught with the drugs and all that, and then they Hollywood sandwiched him. But Dave, did you happen to see this?
I didn't, but you had me at a dog named Furface.
Yes. He has a code on his ear, but they just came up with the name Furface. So it was.
He does have fur on his face.
Yes, he does.
So
we will take a look again. That is confirmed. That is Furface, the golden retriever.
He's just going to be Dave Furface now.
I love that the dog almost like Corey Haim's hairstyle kind of matches the dog.
Yeah.
Like that was intentional.
Yeah, so and he was in Dream a Little Dream at the time where he was supposed to be a punk rocker with Corey Feldman and all that. So I just think it matched out perfect, but it was cool. I really like this flick, and I guess the film company when it went under, it just never resurfaced. Like, this is not available anywhere. I believe right now anybody on YouTube could watch this. I think it's fully uploaded, no copyrights because no one owns it. So it's definitely a flick to check out. Lydia, I know you said you didn't see it either, right?
No.
Oh, a Lucy bomb.
We're talking about a movie about a dog.
Hey, Lucy.
You like dogs?
Yes.
Lucy, this is Lucy's third appearance on my show.
I know, she keeps photobombing it.
You got to see Ghostface this weekend at Monster Mania, right? Right, Lucy?
You saw Ghostface this weekend?
Yeah.
Who was dressed up as Ghostface? I was dressed up. A lot of other people were too, but I was too.
No.
All right, go back to the
Had
other
to
room.
been a very confusing convention.
Go watch your movie.
All right, so we're jumping into the number twos. Back to Lydia, and I highly like her choice. Her number two is The Exorcist 3. Floor's yours.
Such a good movie. I've said that about every pick I had, but I'm biased. So Brad Dourif is in here, and we all know him as the voice of Chucky, but I think that this is probably his best performance, playing the Gemini killer. So I feel like my personal opinion as to why this movie doesn't get the recognition it deserves is because of how bad Exorcist 2 was. That
The Hangover
didn't want to go in and see the third one. But as far as I guess continuity goes, I feel like this one kind of picks up more so not that long after the first one.
This is reality.
I'm sorry. It's 20 years later or something because he's been in,
the reality. This is part
but
two.
But it has the same feel as part one compared to part two that doesn't feel like part of the Exorcist franchise.
There's no giant flies and stuff. Yeah.
So Brad Dourif's character he's the Gemini killer, and he possesses all these old people at a hospital, and they're the ones out doing all these killings. And it has the best jump scare in any horror film, with the nurse and the shears. Well, not the nurse, but going after the nurse.
Yep.
And it's as soon as she locks the door, and you're like, oh, nothing's going to come out of there. The door's locked. Wham! And this is probably in my top 5 favorite horror films of all time.
I could definitely say when this trailer came out, you were finally they're going to correct
Yes.
Part 2 and all it. Yeah, I remember renting this. I was happy. I thought George C. Scott did really good in this, and I really liked the idea that Jason Miller returned for it because he was in it for a bit, which a lot of people don't know. Jason Miller, for anyone who goes to the Mahoning Drive-In in Pennsylvania, that's where he spent his final days. He retired up in the Poconos and did a lot of charities for the police department. But it's amazing with the timing. The Mahoney exploded. Like if he was still around, it'd be pretty easy to score him to go over for a screening of The Exorcist. But I was glad to see him return. I thought it was a good way to end it, but at the same time, I don't know if overall I don't know how the horror. See, I was a young kid.
It's more like psychological thriller, I guess, but it's The Exorcist, so it's horror. So, but it does play more on your psyche than the others, I think.
Yeah.
And I would say there's probably been an uptick in people watching this because it was featured in Dahmer last year.
Good. That'll always help you.
He did in real life like the movie. That's an uncomfortable fact.
Sweet. Dave, any thoughts on this one?
I mean, I love this movie. This is probably one of the best horror sequels. It is the true follow-up to the original in that, William Peter Blatty wrote a novel because he hated Exorcist 2. So he wrote a sequel novel, Legion, and that's what this was.
Sweet.
Well, he did
all right.
job.
Unanimous. We all love. Everybody check it out if you haven't already.
Woo.
So we will move on to, let me just double check here. Yeah. All right. So Days number 2 is something I heavily agree with. I think we all do. Phantasm. I love the first 2 particularly.
This movie, to me, it almost has a hypnotic quality in that I can never watch it enough times. I will just watch it over and over and over again. And I love it's made for like no money. Don Coscarelli had to rent the equipment and only shoot on weekends because it was the same rate to rent it for a Friday and have it for the weekend than it was to rent it during the week. So it's very like DIY, but I just love how surreal and creepy it is and how like the sequels get into the whole larger mythology behind the tall man and the aliens that I'm pretty sure Don Coscarelli had not thought up when he made the first one. I think he was just, let's make a creepy movie. And it's just so atmospheric.
Totally. I was into both of the particularly the first 2. How cool was that? A ball that spins and is just freaking the coolest thing going. And I can remember, I think it was Monster Mania number 7. They had Angus Grimm came, the tall man. And I think he was like 89 years old then. And first thing I thought of was, what a sweet man. I mean, real nice guy. And the second thing is I'm standing next to him like, I'm not supposed to be taller than the tall man. But
he was deceptively not as tall as what he did was they got him a suit that was 2 sizes too small. So it made him appear even larger than he was.
Yeah, and back then you could only do so many camera tricks. So yeah. Because the Phantasm is what, 79?
Yeah,
79.
And I mean, it took an ice cream man in Reggie and turned him into an action hero.
Yep. Lydia, your thoughts on Phantasm?
I haven't seen it.
All right, get out of here.
I know, shame.
It's okay. You got time. Look. Well, between everybody here, there's a few things we didn't see. So, but that one.
When Heather gave me her list, I didn't know like 4. I don't think I knew 4 of them, and I was like, oh gosh.
Oh boy,
it's gonna be bad.
Cool. All right. So my number 2 is something everybody knows.
Let's hope.
When I think of movies that are amazing, most importantly, different to the horror genre, and I don't understand why this movie's not held way higher. I really would love if they would keep going with sequels, but it did not do good at the box office at all. But when you want to talk about a horror movie that goes out of the box, I have to go with Nightbreed. Love of God, Aaron Boone and Midian. This movie is so. It's weird. Horror movie fans know it, but the mainstream, it's just like over there. It's so different. Where the monsters are the good guys, if for once, and the whole idea of heaven don't want you, hell don't want you. But you could party over here. We're gonna put you over here. This is where you belong in this place called Midian. And the whole idea, I remember when they gave HBO away for free when we were younger, because none of us could afford it. But when
Channel
cable,
5.
yeah, yep. HBO aired this on a Sunday night, and we all went into school the next day, and it was like we all wanted to go to Midian. It was like we could not stop talking between classes, and the teachers kept yelling at us about what is this damn movie you guys watched. But I could go on forever and ever about that. But this is just such a different story. Maybe it's because Clive Barker's one of the more unique horror writers of our time. But Lydia, thoughts on Nightbreed?
I haven't seen it.
Oh my God!
I never even heard of it.
Never heard.
What?
I just take me out now. Just put me out
Wow.
the pasture.
I will say, when it comes to Clive Barker, filmography, Nightbreed and Midnight Meat Train are criminally overlooked.
Yes.
Not that Hellraiser and Candyman aren't both amazing, but just I think that these, Nightbreed's overlooked at their expense.
Yeah. Lydia and everybody else, I believe you can watch this on Tubi. I believe you can watch Nightbreed on Tubi.
It is, and I use this word very, very specifically. It is it's dreamlike in how weird it is.
Yes.
And I love that about it. You talk about the monsters. There's such visual creativity that only Clive Barker could have thought of.
Yep. And the idea of like Doug Bradley is the leader, but he's kind of like a Moses good guy in a way, like being like he's really like looking out for his people. I dug the giant fight at the end. I wanted more of the berserkers. I just love that whole how it came together when the humans attack Midian and you're rooting for the monsters. That was a really brilliant idea. I wish then they made the Cabal edition. I don't know if you saw that one, Dave, but the Clive Barker recut it. And
I've heard it's like a completely different movie.
It's a completely different movie because some characters don't make it that made it in this. So I was like, wow.
I've only seen the theatrical. I think it's the original theatrical cut.
Yes. And sticking up for Pennsylvania like I did with Amanda Seyfried, Craig Sheffers from York, Pennsylvania. So another point for Pennsylvania. But all right, so we are down to our number ones.
We made it.
Yeah, I like Lydia's number one by far. This is actually when I saw you had this in the list, I was like, how on earth did I overlook coming in at number one? Frailty. My God, what amazing flick. Nothing like it. Nothing like it.
So good. So good.
I didn't call this. Go. I'm sorry. It's your movie. Go for it.
No.
Yeah.
I was just gonna I didn't even know this until I was looking up information about it earlier. I didn't know that Bill Paxton also directed it, and it was his first movie that he directed. So I'm like, oh my God, that just makes it even more better for me. More better. I know that's terrible grammar, but
we're horror fans. We're not intelligent.
Yeah. And then it also has Matthew McConaughey in it, which is out of his stereotypical roles. This is not I don't think there's any other roles he's done that are similar to this. Not that I'm a huge Matthew McConaughey buff, but any movie I can think of that he's in does not compare to Frailty and his role in it. And so Bill Paxton, he also plays the father in the film, and he is the God's hand killer. He believes that, I think it was the Archangel Michael came down to him, I think and he tells him, he gives him the power to see who people truly are and the crimes that they committed. And he goes out and he gets a list of who he has to go after. And his kids think he's just absolutely crazy and just murdering people, but really he's on a mission from who he thinks is, God. And then it turns out that his son, I'm not going to give away the big twist, but his son carries on, but it's not who you think it is. But
yeah, I mean that, and the steering of the wheels in this movie, like I didn't see coming.
nope.
Like and every time you think you got it, you're like, oh man, we're over here now. Wow.
And I never hear anybody talk about this movie. Like
No.
I feel like it never gets brought up. And it was 2001, so it's not, I mean 22 years now, but I think it's still like fresh ish.
This movie's not close at all to being dated. Not even a little bit. Like if you could watch this tomorrow and you could say, hey, this is from 2023 and you'd believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But Dave, did you happen to see this?
I have not. I remember the very cool cover of the DVD from when I worked at Suncoast. That is the extent of my experience with it, though.
I got to tell you, the cover did not do it for me. So
but I did hear of it.
Off a little bit, yeah. Then I learned about getting tattooed, and everybody was talking about it, and I didn't know. I'm just like, what? I guess I'm going to watch this when I go home while I'm healing. Can't lay on my back anyway. It's going to be hurting, but I'll figure out how to watch it at the time. But yeah, Frail Day, I highly support Lydia's pick here. Huge. Yes.
Well,
all right.
A little bit of the credibility back that I lost from that.
Yes. Yeah. No Nightbreed. All right. So Dave's number 1 is Boogeyman 2. Go for it.
So I know what you're all thinking. You're thinking, Dave, how could a direct-to-DVD sequel to a theatrical original movie not only be better than the original, but be one of your most underrated horror movies of all time? And the reason is simple. It is miles better than its, Boogeyman was an okay, like mid-2000s horror movie that used too much bad CGI. Boogeyman 2 is clever because, number 1, it cast Tobin Bell at the height of his fame as Jigsaw, as like the creepy psychiatrist that you're not sure if he's actually trying to help these people or if he's evil. And it keeps you in doubt as to whether or not the Boogeyman is real. And it has a very like Dream Warriors-esque feel to it, in that you've got a group of young people in a mental hospital, each dealing with an extreme phobia, and like the Boogeyman, manifests itself in their greatest fears. And, in a genre that's all about fear, this is the movie that I felt tackled the idea of fear itself the best.
Okay, cool. I gotta bow out and say I did not see this one, so there's not much I'm gonna be able to.
Most people haven't. Again, yeah. I worked at the video store, and this came out during that era that I worked. These were my formative years of really getting into horror. Was putting away movies in the horror section and being like, "Ooh, this looks cool. Let me watch this. This looks cool. Let me watch this."
Coolness, Lydia.
Did you have like Dave's pick at the end of the aisle?
Oh, we did. We had staff picks, and mine were always horror.
Sweet.
It's like the Seinfeld episode.
Yeah.
Sweet. Before I move on to my number 1, Lydia, you did not see this either?
I did not.
All right, so
I probably haven't seen your number 1 either.
Probably not, but YouTube will fix that. So my number 1 is a film this film I've seen, top 5 films I've watched most in my entire life. This was huge when it came out, and now, just like Watchers, the company is out of business. You can't get this film anywhere. Again, you can buy a bootleg, that Monster Mania. The full movie is on YouTube, about 5 different ways when you pull it up. But my number 1 is Summer Camp Nightmare. We're going back to 1987. This movie was based off a book called The Butterfly Revolution, which I think is the dumbest name I've ever heard. But basically what it's about is a bunch of teenage kids go to a camp. One of the kids happens to be a very wealthy son of a very wealthy family. And he's had a thing about world leader, world history dominance. So this is right up your alley. And he was always kind of telling little stories about, like, the king's severed head and this and that, because he was one of the counselors along with the other kids. And what happens is he makes up a false story that the head counselor Chuck Connors, the actor that was also a professional baseball player, molested a kid, and he convinces all the other CITs, teenage kids, to lock up all the counselors to basically like as a justice sort of thing. And instead of calling the police, let's party for a few nights. And it gets way out of control. So Doug Toby's in this. He played he was in Red Dawn. You have a little of faces that were Adam Carl's in this. There's a little of everyone. Tom Fridley's in this, who played Court in Friday the 13th Part 6, the cousin of John Travolta. But there's a little of everybody in this, and it's so unique, really cool. Obviously, not super unique because there was a lot of camp movies at the time. But think of a little bit of if teenagers ran a camp and you sprinkle some Lord of the Flies over it, things get out of control. But it's a really cool, unique, kind of forgotten about movie. And I remember, again, twice a year when they give out HBO for free, they aired this Sunday night, and we were all talking about we're going to go to camp and take it over, just like they did. That never happened.
If only.
Yes. But I could tell by your faces, and I can imagine a lot of people listening, you're like, what the? I never heard of this movie, right?
It sounds I wonder in hindsight, there's a Simpsons episode where they go to Camp Krusty.
Yes.
And Bart leads like a revolution. And I wonder if that was partially inspired by this movie.
Oh my God, maybe. Wow.
I do remember that. I remember the Simpsons episode. And they're all upset because Krusty never comes.
If Krusty doesn't show up, and then like the parents are watching the news as Ken Brockman is like, the kids have taken over and we're going to go talk to their leader. And Homer's like, don't be the boy. Don't be the boy. And of course it's Bart who's the leader.
I need to watch this episode because I'll know if they make some references to this movie. I watched this so many times. Me and my cousin Jerry, it was like our go-to movie. We had it on VHS, and anytime we hung out, we were constantly playing this movie because it was just very unique. But everybody, Summer Camp Nightmare, put it on YouTube, public domain. You could rip your own copy from YouTube and put it on your own page. No one owns it.
You should put a scene of it in your next movie.
Yeah, and then someone will buy the rights, and then it'll be like, watch, now you owe us money. Brr.
That's how they get you.
Yep. So do not do what she said, even she's just joking anyway. But, wow, guys, we blew right through this list. I hope anybody listening needs to check some of these out. Actually, I need to check some of these out.
I know. We all have some research to do.
Yeah, especially you with not seeing Nightbreed.
Not having heard of it.
Oh, gosh. Don't go see any movies.
I had a very sheltered childhood.
But all right, well, at this time, I will thank everybody for taking the time to check out Average Superstar TV. Sound effect again, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. Dave, feel free to plug everything you need to plug.
Check out on YouTube Halloween Year Round or just HalloweenYearRound.com for all your horror Halloween needs.
Lydia, the floor's yours.
So I'm on TikTok, Lydia Manson 88, and on Instagram, Lydia Manson 88. I do cosplay and that stuff. So if you're interested in those types of things, look me up.
Sweet. And anyone on TikTok, you could write her right now and say you don't know what Nightbreed is. Shame on her.
I'm gonna have to make a TikTok about not knowing.
Absolutely.
You're going to have to cosplay as one of the Nightbreed monsters to make up for this.
Yes. I think you need like a month in Midian to make up for this.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of rules in Midian, by the way.
I don't like rules.
Yeah, well, some people there that might not take too kindly of you disobeying. So, all right. But with that, I do plan on doing another round of this. And until next week's show, I will say, the party is over.